Thank you for having this virtual and in-person hearing. And after I ask my questions, I'll vacate my spot here so that others can ask their question in person. The question before us is, why was the Inspector General fired? Mr. Bullito offers us two rather easily dismissed ideas. The first is that the audit report was late. As co-chair of the bipartisan CPA caucus and the only professional auditor in this room, I assure you that was not the reason. If you look at the Department of Defense and other departments, the State Department being a few weeks late with its audit report is tiny compared to other agencies and their late or non-existent audit reports. But if being late with reports is reason to fire somebody, why are we focusing just on audit reports? They're not matters of life and death. State Department foreign policy and this committee's decisions affect life and death, and they are chronically late. So, Mr. Bullito, since you're running management over there, since these legally required reports are incredibly late, wouldn't you yourself resign if late reports, critically necessary for policy matters of life and death, are late under your watch? But then we're told that we should fire the Inspector General because of low morale in surveys. Mr. Bullito, if you had any integrity, you'd also be calling for the resignation of Secretary Pompeo. All of us in this room know what morale is like in his State Department. And we don't have to rely on surveys where maybe somebody doesn't want to say anything bad that hurts their immediate supervisor because they and their immediate supervisor are all united that that service in the State Department is an incredibly difficult and depressing thing to do. And we have people with immediate contacts in the State Department right here on this committee. If low morale is reason for someone to be fired, look up, not down. So the real question here is, why was the Inspector General fired? And there are two possible reasons. One is that he was investigating the myriad of ways in which State Department resources were being used to meet the political and personal needs of Secretary Pompeo. Or two, that a bizarre decision was reached to evade Congress on the sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia and nearby countries. I agree with Mr. Cooper. Which of these two? You say you don't know? I don't know. But I'm going to focus on evading the law because that is a matter of life and death. Those weapons kill. And so we ask, what is the emergency? The emergency is that Congress might prevent the administration from doing it at once. You see, the emergency here is not that an imperial presidency would shred the Constitution, but rather that Congress would assert its constitutional rights and endanger the imperial presidency. The ranking member puts forward the idea that because success was reached in an important aspect in the Middle East, that therefore violations of the Constitution and the laws we pass to implement it is retroactively legalized. I've read the Constitution. There's nothing in there that says the executive branch can ignore congressional prerogatives if they're able to arrange a peace agreement with Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. Now, Mr. Faulkner testified that the murder and dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi was perceived as the emergency. The emergency was Congress might actually look at these arms sales and reach a different conclusion. It, quote, made it harder to get the sales approved, and of course the President says he saved the Crown Prince's ass for accountability for that murder. Mr. String, who did you talk to at the White House about this emergency declaration and the need to issue it to prevent Congress from rejecting the arms sale? Did you talk to Mr. Jared Kushner? Did you talk to Peter Navarro?
Thank you, Congressman, for those questions. Just one point of clarification. I believe, as I recall, Congress did vote on these sales ultimately. But to your question, I don't recall ever speaking with Mr. Kushner during my time in the Political and Military Affairs Bureau. I recall speaking to Mr. Navarro, but I do not recall speaking to him about any particular emergency declaration.
And since this is you've been interviewed as a fact witness on this, is it also appropriate for you to be the lawyer and the fact witness in this matter?
Thank you for that question, Congressman. So I take ethics obligations very seriously, as we all do in the department. I've consulted extensively with the career designated agency ethics official in the department. He has confirmed that attendance in meetings by those who were also interviewed was entirely appropriate in this case, and a few facts support that view. First, the IG review was not an investigation of misconduct by the investigations unit. Rather, it was a review.
I believe my time has expired, and we understand the gist of your answer. And I'll just say that if people are going to be fired because there's low morale, it starts at the top. I yield back.